Hey guys, welcome back to the Max Spence Business Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, but before I jump into that, if you guys like the content I'm putting out, the people I'm interviewing, please like, subscribe, leave a review. It helps out a ton with the podcast and also the people that are coming on the show. If you can't go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, that helps out a ton as well. So without further ado, today's guest is Akeem Haynes. So he's a two-time Olympian, a bronze medalist in the 2016 Olympic Games. He currently runs his own business, a coaching and public speaking company. It's great having you on the show, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, man. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So, for people that maybe don't know who you are, why don't we just start from the beginning? Where did you grow up? Where did you grow up? What university did you go to? And what was your first passion?
So originally born in Jamaica, Westmoreland, Jamaica. Moved to Canada in 1998. Back then, it wasn't so hard to get back into Canada, right? So from there, came to Calgary in 2002. Yeah, 2002. I went to school in Calgary, went to Crescent Heights High School, did my high school there, then went on to Barton Community College, which was a junior college in Kansas. And then from there, I graduated from the University of Alabama. And so that's kind of the backstory of the school aspect in the nutshell. My first passion, man, I wouldn't necessarily say it was sports per se. From a very young age, I had always asked myself one question. I think it's a question that we are all trying to figure out, is what is the purpose of life? Right? I've always asked myself that from an early age. And even though I didn't understand what that meant at the beginning stages of my life, I knew that I was created here for a specific reason. And all of us are created here for a purpose. And so I have been blessed in that sense where I've been able to discover that a little bit earlier than most people. Because sometimes it takes a lifetime, 50, 60 years for someone to say, okay, I finally am able to do what I believe I was called to do. So for me, man, I asked that question to myself early, and I could say that developed into that passion. I kind of really dove into it when I was about 20 years old, man.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, like you have an incredible sports background. So what sort of like we're gonna jump into that, but just like sort of carrying on the conversation right now. What sort of led to you to like the public speaking and coaching? Right? Was that something that you always like? Did you just enjoy having those like sort of deep conversations of trying to understand like purpose and life and trying to have those very high level conversations of trying to understand and trying to figure out and help others,
Yeah.
sort of understand their purpose and what they can do. Was that always something that you were doing at a young age, or did it sort of like happen like an epiphany or something that happened?
Man, so, to be quite honest, as we've talked about before, man, I had a very bad stuttering problem, right? I saw some things in my life that kind of hampered me in that aspect of things. And so for a greater portion of my life, man, you could ask anybody who knew me at the beginning stages. I never really said much. You know what I'm saying? I was always observing. So I spent a lot of my time listening and just trying to understand, what different ways of life happen. And for me, I'm a low key guy. I'm not really a guy who wants to be in the spotlight. That's just never been me. But I believe that we're all called for a purpose. And I believe God put that purpose in me. Now, when there is something that you believe you were called to do, something that you are passionate about and can't stop thinking about, right? That is going to continue to call you. Now, you are going to have to be faced. Do I decline this call, or do I answer this call? Now, if you decline the call, it's going to continue to come back in your life. For example, a thought that you may have over and over and over again, and you're like, man, why does this keep happening? That's not by coincidence, right? So for me, man, I always wanted to serve, and I always wanted to serve in a capacity that was authentic to myself, right? That is what I believe purpose is. And I just saw so many people hurting, man, so much pain, especially growing up in Jamaica. I grew up around violence and seen so many different things. And I was like, man, how can I do my part to lighter a burden for those coming behind me, right? Because especially more than ever right now in the pandemic, uncertainty is something that we see and we talk about so much, man. So I just wanted my story to be a story that gives someone hope in a dark path that they may be on. You may not be able to get anything from my story. You may not, but I think that there is something that you can take from it. And I believe that there is something that we can all pass down to people coming behind us that can maybe be a light for them in their journey at some point in their life, man. So that's where that whole notion came behind from me.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I like, does that sort of stem into like the sports a bit, like sort of like inspiring and competing, and like, does is there any link of like that between like what you do now in the sports, and actually talking about that into greater detail? Yeah, like I would love to hear about like, you know, how did you get into like the running and training to become a training to become like an Olympic athlete with an Olympic athlete, which is not
Yeah.
like, you know, a very easy task. It takes like hundreds and hundreds of hours of work and work and work and work and work just to get to that one moment, just to compete. So
Yeah,
can
man.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah. So, to be honest, I never had an aspiration to become an Olympian. I know a lot of people, especially in the sport, that's a dream that came to them. It didn't really come to me like that. I always wanted to play football. That was what I wanted to do. And so in high school, that's what I was doing. I was playing football. It was going well. And my track coach, my football and track coach, he said, Akeem, you would be a lot faster for football if you ran track and field. And I was like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. And he was like, no, man, this is what would happen, because I just couldn't fathom, Max, why track and field was every other sport's punishment, right? You're just running constantly over and over again. But then once I started doing it, some doors started to open and I started to see, man, this could be another opportunity here, because I started to get scholarship offers. And for me, the best way to go to school at that time, because I didn't come from money, I didn't have a lot of money going up. My mom worked, three, sometimes four jobs, right? So it was going to be hard for me to go to school. So I started to understand that I can get a full athletic scholarship from this and I can get my school paid for. So that was the motivation, the mentality behind all of that. But as I got into it, I remember when I started playing football, my coach in the ninth grade said, Akeem, football will teach you a lot about life. And I always question that, because to that point today, I had been through a lot of things. I had been through so many things that would have broke many people, right? And so for me, I always feel that my life prepared me for the ups and downs of sport. Being able to consistently commit to this one thing every single day, put the work in every single day, despite how you feel, because you're going to be sore. You are going to not feel motivated to run that day. You're going to be not motivated to lift the gym, when you're sore, and all these different things. But it always taught me about commitment, because even though in the moment I may have been tired, may have been sore, I knew where I wanted to get to. And sometimes if we can focus on the long-term vision as we're handling the day-to-day commitments, we can draw inspiration and motivation from the long-term goal as we're working towards a short-term goal. So for me, man, a lot of those times and those hours, man, I spent a lot of time doing extra work, right? Going to the field at 9:30 a.m. by myself in the dark, working on my skills, working on my craft. Because I remember my mom one time, she said, Akeem, where are you going? I was like, Mom, I'm going to the field to go, practice, get a little bit working. And she was like, why? It's about to be dark there in like 20 minutes. I said, yeah, but someone over in China is up and they've been working for a while, right?
Yeah.
Someone over in Australia has been up and they've been working for a while. And I said, while most people in Canada are probably sleeping, I'm like, man, I'm competing for a scholarship for something else in different countries. And I got to make sure that while I'm awake, I got to make the most of that ability. So in that space of isolation, when there was nobody there, Max, and it probably looked crazy, right? But I knew that, man, I had to do more, because I wasn't the only one that wanted those same success. I had to do more. And so I developed a lot of things that helped me get to that elite level in isolation when nobody was watching.
Yeah, yeah. So like the first sort of instance of like you training to be like to get into running and get really good was because of scholarships, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I want to get my school paid for.
yeah. So pretty much to get into university, and yeah, so okay. So that was the motivation when you first started running, was like, okay,
Yes.
and at that time, were you like always a competitive person, or like did it sort of click for you, or was it sort of gradual that you started to get more competitive in running and being like, oh, I can like this can running can actually bring me places in life, and I can actually achieve certain things by putting the work in and getting really good at this one craft.
So I had the ability to flip on a switch. And even though I'm away from the sport right now, I still do it today. Right. So um, I had that switch that I would turn on in competition. Always competitive. I'm overly competitive, but I'm more competitive with myself than I am with people. Right. So I would create these things inside my head like Akeem, man. They don't want you to score 6 touchdowns today before the game even started. Who was they? No idea, but I created they. Right. And so I had always been competitive, man, but I knew that I was competing against myself. I'm a firm believer that whatever room that you find yourself in, you belong there. And so when you get into that room, whether that's a promotion in the business, you got some slides to do, whether it's a client you're trying to close in, whether it's a professional sport, whatever room that you find yourself and you get into. But when you are in that room, you got to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do. So I would go into competition, whether on the field or the track, expecting to dominate. Like I expected to win. I never once went into competition, whether at a youth, whether at the Olympic level, expecting to lose. Didn't matter who was in the race, right? I've raced Usain Bolt, Johan Blake, all these guys. I expected to win. If you don't expect to win in life, what do you think is going to happen? It's not just going to happen. But in the everyday expectation to be the best, you evolve and to grow, and you stretch yourself and you get out of your comfort zone and you try and mold yourself mentally in who you expect yourself to be. So I've always been competitive. There was never a race that I didn't expect to dominate, and not just dominate by a little bit, Max. Like I expect to blow the door open every single time, right? Because I know how well I prepared. I know how well I put the work in. And so I wanted it to show each and every single day that I stepped on any field.
Yeah, 100%. And where do you think that confidence like comes from to just be like so like I understand that you put the hours in, so you have that falling back, but like for a lot of people like with like that, a lot of people struggle with confidence, right? So building up their confidence is something like self-confidence is huge. Like was that something that you were just like just like one of those innate things that you're just born with, that you're just like confident, or like was it something that you need to work at? And how did you become so confident in yourself?
Man, I am a big advocate for self-talk, right? Everything that we are in public first happens in private. And so I would tell myself everything that I already thought that I could be, even though I wasn't that yet, right? So conversations to myself would look like, Akeem, man, you got a game today. Hey, we got to, we're probably going to get the ball this amount of times. Okay, we want to make sure that we are scoring this many times. And we want to make sure that we know that we are here to dominate. There is nobody that can stop you. They can't keep up with you, man. They may keep up with you for a quarter, maybe two, but not the whole game. It just won't happen. So you have to rise yourself to the occasion. Akeem, how bad do you want it, man? What are we going to do here? Are you willing to push past the days when you're tired, the games when you're tired? Akeem, there's scouts in the room. There's scouts in the stands coming here to see you run. Hey, man, let's just do what we've been doing. Let's not feed into the external noises. Let's just do what we got to do. Akeem, you are great, man. You are special. You are unique. You got some good things that you're about to do here. Man, it's ready. It's showtime. You work for this. You earn for this. So these are the things that I would say to myself behind closed doors. These are the things that I would say to myself as I'm going to the track, as I'm warming up. There's probably some videos where if you look close enough where you can see me mouthing to myself. I'm not singing a song. I'm not saying much. I'm talking to myself. I'm saying, man, you're here. You're here. So let's make sure that the world knows that you are here. Talk bigger than yourself until you believe where you are. So continue working on the self-talk each and every single day, man, because when you tell yourself something enough times, eventually your brain starts to believe it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I absolutely love like self-talk. Did you see I'm trying to remember, like, did you see I think it's UFC 63 or 65 with like I like, to be honest, I didn't even watch the fight, but I just saw the headline and I saw the interview with like Joe Rogan and her, like, I don't even know the woman's name, but like everybody would call her like, to be honest, if there's any UFC fans listen to this, they're gonna be like, man, like, but anyway, yeah, her name was like, all I really remember, her name was like that people were calling her like Thug Rose or something, but she
Yes.
And she was, I think she was competing for the championship or something for her
Yeah,
weight
she
class.
won. Hmm.
She won. I don't know if you saw that, or saw like just that clip went viral of her with Joe Rogan, of her like before actually going into the match was doing the exact same thing you're doing, right? It's just like I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, and just kept repeating that
Hmm.
over and over and over again. And like Joe Rogan brought that up actually in the interview, was like, hey, like before you actually went in the ring, like I saw you over in the corner being like, I'm the best in the
Yeah,
world, I'm the best in the world. We're just like
yeah.
hyping herself up. And yeah, I 100% agree with you. Is like that's one of the best ways to like self-talk is like something that I think is like very overlooked in life.
Oh,
Like just
100%.
having those personal conversations with yourself, because I do it. And the surprising thing too is like a lot of entrepreneurs and like business leaders do the exact same thing. They always have those conversations of like hyping themselves up. Let's say if it's going into like a big deal or something like that, or they need to perform, they like, they're just always self-talking themselves, right? Just bringing that confidence, which I love. So now sort of transitioning now, you get into university. When does sort of the Olympics sort of come into the picture?
Yeah, man. So, I actually made my first Olympic team in 2012 when I was 20 years old. Um, so that was in London. So when I got there, I went to my junior college. Originally, I had signed to play football and run track at Florida State, but some things happened. And I went to a junior college. And so I didn't run well my first year there. I was coming off injuries and I had never been hurt before. So it was a new feeling. And so I remember coming back the second year and I met with my coach and I sat in his office on the couch. I said, Coach, I got to make this Olympic team. And, he was just like, yeah, Akeem, for sure. And I looked him dead in the face. I was like, Coach, no, you don't understand. I have to make this Olympic team. And it really wasn't about the Olympic team as much it was about the times that I needed to run, right? Because if you run those world-class times, it puts you in a different category. And so I really dialed in that year, right? Because I'm a firm believer that if you train as hard and sacrifice as much as other people, right, then it's your time to seize the moment, right? It's your time to go out and seize the opportunity when it comes. And an opportunity for an Olympic team happens every 4 years. And in 4 years, you get older and older and older, and your body changes. Life happens. And so at that time, I had trained really well that year. I had a breakout season. I was the number one recruit in the country, and like I made the team that year. So for that first time, it was more about showing up to the games because I didn't run there. I was an alternate. So 4 years later, when I was graduated by now and training in Phoenix, getting ready for Rio, I was more mature. I was different. I understood what the games was like. My experiences from the past was preparing me how to handle the ins and outs of this. So 4 years later, we got to Rio, and what happened was we got the medal and all that good stuff. But I didn't run in 2012, but the atmosphere prepared me for how to deal with it 4 years later. Because when you get to the village, a lot, people always ask, Kim, what is the village like? Is it fun? It's exciting, and it's all those things, but it's more intense than anything. You are super focused. You don't you go to your track, you go to eat because you got to eat. If you can catch some of the thing that's happening other sports, then you'll go there. But when it's time to compete, you're just so focused because this opportunity may never come again. So you got to focus on it. But my first Olympic team was 2012. 2016 was the second one. So different preparation, different readiness for both of them. But the first one was 2012 when I was 20 years old.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And the difference with even business or like sports, right? Like, let's say if you're trying to get into like the NFL or something, like, yeah, it takes a lot of years. But once you're in, you're sort of in, right? And you're training all the time. But I mean, like, I don't know, but I sort of see it as like when you're training for something that happens every 4 years, it seems like it's a lot more pressure because it's like you're performing once in 4 years, and everything like those 4 years of your life is dedicated to that one moment. So like how do you deal with that? Like that must be immense pressure and stress. And like yeah,
Yeah.
having to deal, like you spend 4 years of your life working absolutely insane like hours in the dark without anybody giving you a pat on the back or congratulations or anything like that for one moment when you show up and you have to like perform at like your highest level. And so how do you sort of deal with that stress and
Yeah,
the like the anxiety of doing that?
that's a great question, man. Whenever I go and speak now to companies, organizations, schools, athletes, especially companies at the highest level trying to, close certain deals, right? How you handle pressure, man. The best thing that I would say, and I tell them all the time, in a pressure situations, the worst thing that you can do is to do something different that you haven't been doing. The best thing that you can do is to double down on your preparation that helped got you there. When you are at the elite level and you see these athletes, right? The ones who do well are the ones who just been doing what they've been doing, right? Because that's just what they know. But when you get to a games, let me break it down a little bit, give more example. If you're a person, Max, who always listens to music before you warm up, right? That's just your thing, listening to music and dancing a little bit, having a good time. And you get to the games, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I'm at the games. I gotta stay focused. And you put away your music, well, now you just broke your routine. It may not seem like it's a big deal, but so much about sports is having the routine because you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So it's meticulous. It's like art, right? And in art, you know where you want to do. And so why change anything? So in the pressure situations, man, how I handled it was I just doubled down on my preparation and I didn't change anything, right? But I made that mistake in 2012, so I didn't make that mistake in 2016, right? So in the pressure situation, the best thing that you can do is to continue doing what you know and trust your preparation. If you know you have a big presentation coming up and you're nervous, you're anxiety, like, man, I don't want to mess it up. Look, we never want to be on the opposite end of messing things up. Never want to be on the opposite end of failure and mistakes, right? So yeah, that could happen, but you can't focus on what could happen. It hasn't happened yet. But what you can focus on is how you control and prepare for it, right? So preparing is the one thing that will help relieve pressure. The things that come from pressure that most people think, especially at the Olympic Games, man, people think it's the it's the it's the cameras, the lights, the athletes. No, honestly, the biggest distractions come from internal things. For example, you're trying to prepare for your race and your family's coming over. Now you're worrying about, man, is the family going to arrive at the hotel properly? Family calls and they say, hey, so and so is with us. We need 16 tickets. How do we get 16 tickets? Well, now you're like, man, now I got to go get tickets. I don't know who to go to get tickets. And all of these other distractions come into play. So you can't focus on what you got to do because you're trying to quiet the noise doing other things. Right. So going back to your question, man, the thing that helped me the most was not doing anything different, but doing everything that I had already been doing that prepared me, that helped me have success to that date.
Yeah, and that's like I've seen a few videos and a few different people talking about that, and it's like it goes back to the sports analogy. Well, I mean this is sports, but like talking about the routine, right, and just keeping that routine. Like I saw a video where it was a baseball player, and like every time he goes to like do something, like well, every time he goes to a game, it's the same routine that he does. It's literally like what you're talking about. And I mean like that equates over into business, right? Like if you're going into a sales call or like let's say a sale and it's for like let's say a product or a service, but this product or service is a much higher dollar value, just do it the same thing you're doing before, right? Like it's worked previously,
Yes.
just that like and I 100% agree with that. So now talking about the race itself, like how did that feel when you actually got onto the track? You like started the race and then you finished it. Can you actually take us through like those like moments and what you felt while it was happening?
Man, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that one before. So let me give you a play-by-play. This again, of my perspective, a lot of people have different ones, how they happen for them. So man, so about like 2.5 hours, right? You're on your commute to the practice track, right? So usually in that time, I'm listening to music, man, just laying low, real calm music, nothing too crazy. I don't want to get too excited yet. I don't want to get too amped up yet. Just want to get calm. Just want to hear something in my ears, right? So, however long the commute is, say half an hour, get to the practice track. Okay, look at my watch. Okay, I got about 2 hours before showtime. So I go and sit down, put my feet up, chill out a little bit, listening to music, maybe replying to a couple messages. About hour and a half out, okay, messages are done. Now we're dialing in. Phone is on do not disturb, airplane mode. Now we're dialing in. Now I'm thinking about the race. Like, man, okay, I got to make sure that I get a good start out, right? And then I got to make sure that my mechanics are right, get a good push. When the gun goes, Akeem, you go focus on one thing, because you can't, the human brain can't focus on too many things at a time. So Akeem, pick one. About an hour left. Okay, it's time to warm up, man. Let's really start to get into it. I go do my 2 laps. I'm looking around. I'm seeing the people. I'm like, yep, this is about to be a great day. It's about to be a good day. The music is sounding right in the ears. It's tucked in the pocket nicely, so it's not hitching on my clothes. The atmosphere is there, man. I see the top dogs over there. Man, the stadium is rocking, it's jumping. It's like, hey, man, as I'm thinking about that, oh man, my heart is pounding. I'm getting nervous. I'm like, man, Akeem, man, whoa, hey, you don't want to lose. You don't want to fail. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of people here in the stadium, but there's millions on millions of people watching. It's the Olympic Games. Everybody's here. Man, my heart is pounding. It's starting to really get into it now. Stop, take a moment, take a breath. Remember why you're here. You're here. You belong here. So let's go ahead and have a good warm up and let's get into it. Boom, warm up goes. Spikes on, get some spikes in. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 30, 25 minutes. We head to the call room. Now we're in the call room. Every single athlete that is trying to do what you want to do is in that room. Now we're playing a poker game because everybody's nervous, but they're not looking at each other. So you can't break eye contact with whoever stares at you. If they stare, you stare right back, but you keep it calm. There's no pressure on you. You've been here. So let's just go ahead and move through it. 15 minutes goes, they call us in, spike up in the call room. The lady or the guy gives us our bib numbers. Boom, we put it on. Take a moment, take a quick prayer. Thank you, God, for the time. Thank you, God, for getting me here today. Thank you, Lord, for everything that you have helped me to get to this point. Let's have a good race and let's go ahead and make it happen. We get out to the call room, get on the track. Official says you have 5 minutes to do a practice start, do a block start, get yourself ready. 5 minutes, take your clothes off, and let's go ahead and let's get in the blocks. Runners on your mark, set, go. Focus on my lane, execute as best as I can, cross the line, look up on the clock. Okay, good time. Race is done.
Holy crap, man. That's yeah.
So that's my thought process going through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that experience is like unparalleled in life. Like what you got to experience by going through that, like that must have been the most craziest, like the goosebumps that you must have felt when like that, like you're going through that and everything that was happening. Like when you were doing the run itself, were you like thinking about anything, or was it just like were you thinking like, okay, I got to do this, or was it just like clear mind, just go, and it was just like
yeah. So man, I think whichever athlete listens to this episode, man, everything that you have been doing to get to that point, your body is probably going to do it whether you close your eyes or not. And so when you get into a competition, you will not do well if you overthink. So for me, I focus on one thing, and the only thing that I focus on, Max, is the gun. When I hear pop, boom, I gotta go, because the human brain can't think of too many things all at once, but it can focus on one thing. But when you've been doing the same thing over and over again, your body knows what to do, whether you realize it or not. So in those moments, when the gun goes, that's all I focus on. When the gun goes, you go, and let your body do the rest. So I don't think, I just listen.
yeah, no, that like that's absolutely crazy. Yeah, and when you finish, like when you crossed the finish line, you looked up, like how, like what sort of emotions were like flowing through you after you just completed it?
Yeah, man. So every race kind of depends, because for me, I've always found the races that I think I ran the fastest is not usually the race that I ran the fastest. But 2016 was an interesting part because I didn't run well in the 100-meter heats, right? They take 24 to the semifinals and I finished 25th. And so I was very disappointed because I knew the mistakes that I made. But a week later, I had an opportunity to run again. and, we ran the relay and we crossed the medal and we got the medal. So in that race, I ran first. My whole job, what I was thinking about was just making sure that I get a good enough lead and start that when I gave the stick to Aaron, that we had a little bit of lead or it was close. Because we had America down there beside us. We had the Jamaicans right above us, right below us as well too. So it was gonna be stacked. And so when I was watching those guys ran, I passed the stick and I kind of just sat down and I said, well, my job is done, right? So now it's just trusting my teammates. And I knew that we had a squad, right? So when Andre came, crossed the line, we were looking back and we saw the times. We saw Jamaica ran 37.3. We saw the Japanese ran 37.5. And we saw the Americans ran 37.5 and then us ran 37.63. I think the Americans ran 37.62. It was close. First initial thought was, man, we got fourth. That sucks. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, I'd rather get eighth than fourth, right? But it's one of those constellations where you see 37.64 new Canadian record. So we broke the record, but we didn't get the medal. But some things happened, and the Americans actually stepped out of their lane, so we got bumped up to third, and that changed everything. So my initial thought once I crossed the line was, man, that was one of the fastest races, if not the fastest race in history. But my initial thought was, man, we got fourth, man. That sucks, man. Man, that sucks. But then once we got elevated to third, it was like, okay, that's what we came here to do, to get a medal, right? And that's the most important thing in major championship. That's what we all want. Times is cool, but we would rather take home the hardware.
Yeah, 100%. And even that, like fourth, I know, like looking at it in retrospect, like fourth is still amazing, but like I mean, yeah, like I understand from your guys' point of view, it's like you guys trained 4 years, like you wanted to go home with something, like just give us something.
Yeah,
But fourth in the world
absolutely.
is still like still amazing. Like you're the top fourth team in the human world is absolutely insane, right? But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. In retrospect, it is, man. But that's just the competitive nature, right? You go there to win, and if you don't win or don't medal, it's like, man, the whole year is a wash.
yeah. So now moving on after that, like a good chunk of your life was training for this event, this one thing, right? To run the Olympics, to be an Olympian, right? How did you transition out of that? Like, how did you find the transition? Because that's something that a lot of people face, right? It's like, let's say they've been training to do something for a long time, or they get injured, or they're not able to do the career that they wanted to do, and now they're in this sort of inner turmoil of trying to figure out like like going back to the how we started the podcast, like what's my life purpose? Like what am I meant to do, right? Like I spent the last 15 years through high school, university, and or like a bit of my young adulthood looking to do this one thing and I can't do it anymore. Like, what am I supposed to do? So did you have any of that, or did you sort of have something lined up afterwards?
So I had been speaking since I was 20, right? So I retired from sport when I was 25, right? But I had been speaking when I was 20 years old. So when I wasn't training in track and field, I was in my local communities, I was in schools, I was in the jail speaking, right? And I was already practicing because I believe that this is what God called me to do. And so I had to steward that, but I couldn't fully be in it because track and field took up so much time. So when I stepped away from it, I had already prepared myself to walk away from it and what I was going to do. The issue was I didn't know much about the business side of things. And there was a lot of things that I had to learn along the way, right? How to operate a business, what does that look like? How to tailor a specific message, how to make sure that you aren't looking like a fool on stage when you're trying to, when a company comes and says, Akeem, I need this message across. How do you tailor that? How do you stay authentic to yourself? How much do you charge? What does that look like? And so all of these things that I had to learn, but I always knew and always felt like I had heard this when I was like 10 years old. I heard someone say, man, after athletes retire from sport, they go into depression and a lot of them become suicidal because their sole identity is in that. And I didn't want that, right? So I always searched for other things. And so when I found this other thing that I believe I was called to do, I spent time learning that. Max, and to be quite honest, not a lot of people know this, but I spent 4 years learning and working on my craft, and I didn't take a single dollar, right? Because I'm a person who, I'm not going to give you a half product. I'm not going to give you a product that I haven't polished yet, right? So for the first 4 years of speaking, I didn't take any money. I was just learning. I was just trying to develop skills so that when I do charge, you see the preparation and not just someone who is just coming to take the money, right? I'm a person about integrity, certain morals and certain values. And I would not give something to myself or to someone that I didn't think was at that level yet. So I spent 4 years just learning the skills, making sure I could deliver my message a certain way. So I was prepared to leave the sport, um, but I just wasn't prepared necessarily how to do the ins and outs of the business aspect that I had to learn. But I always had a plan of my departure.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, and that's like that that's something that like a lot of people don't think about, right? Because it's like, let's say like I sort of experienced it because I wanted to be in the army, and that's like the only thing I wanted to do was I wanted to be in the military and do that type of stuff. But
Yeah.
I got injured and things changed and stuff, and I decided, and I sort of fell into this like I was like shit. I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Yeah,
Yeah.
I sort of had this moment, and speaking to other people that they've sort of had the same thing of being like, oh, like what am I supposed to do now? Like, and that's great. And I highly recommend to do what you pretty much did, was like find like not just like, yeah, you need to dedicate your time to like the one thing that you're doing at that moment, right? Which for you is running. But for somebody else, it could be something else, but always exploring, and always exploring and seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, tasting different things of life, right? And having a better understanding. Because I mean, like at the end of the day, that's always going to help, right? And even doing it for
Yes.
like you said, you were doing it for free, but you were just learning and experiencing and doing all that type of stuff and building your portfolio for the one day
Mhm.
that it was going to be the job that was going to take over, the being a being an Olympian, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was and to backpack off that real quickly before we transition to your next question, I spent 4 years and I didn't take any money. Now, I don't want to say that I didn't want the money. I wanted the money, right? But I had to really look within myself to see if I was worth the money. 4 years later, I had an opportunity to speak with. So yeah, so from 24 at 25, I had an opportunity to Virgin Mobile invited me to come out and speak, right? And Virgin Mobile, big brand, all these different things. Um, they invited me to speak, and they said, Akeem, we have this much money allocated for you, and we have this hotel allocated here for you, and that money that they gave me there was way more money than I probably would have made in that 4 years, right? Just in that one engagement alone. It was, at that time, it was the biggest number that I've seen, right? And that is when I knew that, man, you know, this could be something here, because people always say, you can't make money doing certain things, right? But I always said, man, I think this is something here that I could do for the rest of my life, and I don't have to beat up my body as much too, right? So the only reason why I shared that story was because, man, don't let anybody put limitations on what's possible for you, right? When we talk about passions and things that we are that mean the most to us, right? Don't despise small beginnings, right? Purpose and passion may look different from other people, but that doesn't make what you're passionate about and what you find purposeless any significant, right? So don't take that for granted, right? Whatever you're passionate about, whatever you feel led to do, it may look different, it may look similar, but you're the one that makes it authentic. And so, we just got to be careful of what voices we listen to, man, because the right voices will help encourage you to do that thing, but the wrong voices will discourage you, and you'll never think about, man, maybe that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Like 100% on that. And like, so like some things in life, like speaking engagement, like that career path is really hard to make money. But when you do
Yes.
start to make money, you can actually make a very, very good living for yourself. And I sort of think it like you look at different industries and different jobs. Like there's some jobs that like day one, you'll start making money off the bat. But then there's other jobs
Yeah.
that take years and years and years and years of not making any money. It's like, it's the same
Yeah.
for YouTubers, for example, right? It's like years and years and
Yes.
years of making no money to little money. But then, there's that 1 year when all those 4, 5, 6 years of practice and training sort of come together. And,
Hmm.
that 1 year just blows out of the water. And you're just like, holy crap, I went from zero to now doing like 6 figures in 1 year. And it's like,
Yeah.
what it's like, like how, and like for humans, I think it's sort of hard to quantify it, because, in
Yes.
your head, you're sort of like, you need to sort of see something consistently growing. Otherwise you're like, why am I doing this? But like, it's like, you just put that time in at the beginning. And different careers are going to need different times, and it's going to take different time for you to actually start making a living off of it. And I 100% love that. Is like, literally listening to the right people is so crucial, and really listening to yourself is the biggest, right? Is like, it really comes down to what you love doing it. And I mean, if you love doing it,
Hmm.
then I mean, at the end of the day, you can never lose, right? Because I mean, you love doing it.
Mm.
So even
Yeah.
if let's say 6 years down the line, or 7 or 8, and you don't make any money, but hey, it's not like you wasted that time. You were still doing something you loved, and you still were giving some, you still had an impact on other people's lives.
Spot on, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have nothing else to add. That was beautifully said.
Thank you, thank you. But yeah, I know we're coming to the end here. I've got a couple other questions, but I
Sure.
would love to. I would love to do another podcast with you, jumping into some other topics that I think would be really well suited for you, and I think you'd be able to have some great insight on them. But
Let's make it happen. Yep.
I'll leave that for another podcast. But yeah, thank you again, man, for coming on the show. Where can people find out more about you? Your personal brand, if they want to book you for a speaking engagement, or sort of pick your brain about how to do better in sports or business, or anything else, other questions they have.
Man, so on social media, it's at underdog AKH. You can find me there. I'm all over there. Website www.akeeminspires.com. It has booking information and all that good stuff. If you want to contact me directly, then it's info@akeeminspires.com. My assistant Jeremy will probably answer. He's a lot more organized in that sense than I am, but booking and all that stuff is in there. And for anything else that you want to reach out, man, hit me on social media. I'm not hard to find. I'm not hard to find, and I'll definitely respond, man. I think one of the best thing that a person can do is to always operate in a sense of humility, right? Because I always see it so many times. You can be at the top of the top in a day, and the next day you can fall just as quickly, right? So it's very important to know that in every single battle that we're in, that we're all not alone, and we're all trying to get to a certain level, and we can get there together, way quicker than we can by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I love that. And I think that's a great way to end the podcast. Well, thank you again, man, for coming on the show. It's been absolutely amazing.
Max, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you again for having me, man.